My name is Corey Turner, Senior Director of Healthcare Strategy at Tecsys, and welcome to another Tecsys in Conversation. In this interview, we'll be speaking with Rick Watkinson, Senior Product Manager at Tecsys. In Rick's 30-plus year career, he has touched on every aspect of supply chain logistics. He has a wealth of knowledge cultivated both at Tecsys and through a number of other high-profile logistic companies. As the supply chain industry evolves, healthcare organizations are looking at automation to help them address key challenges that include anticipating service disruptions, addressing labor shortages, and eliminating technology and data insecurities. There's a lot of talk about automation going around, and today we're going to dig a little deeper to find out what it means for the future of your operations. Thanks for joining me today, Rick. Before we dive into our conversation about automation for healthcare supply chains, can you please introduce yourself and then tell us a little bit about your background?
Sure. My name is Rick Watkinson. I'm a senior product manager with Tecsys. It always amazes me when I hear that kind of introduction. I really start to feel old, 30 plus years in the industry, absolutely. But I will say I did start while I was young, so I've got that going for me. Most of my experience has been around logistics in the supply chain. My first job, I remember doing a physical inventory paper-based system and thought that was pretty cool. From there, we progressed and developed one of the first RF-based WMSs for a major pharmaceutical chain, worldwide pharmaceutical chain, to be run in Canada. And when I saw that and was involved in that development, I was hooked. I knew my path in life, and I was going to pursue this.
As mentioned earlier, the newest buzzword is automation, and it can be very overwhelming. So, what does automation mean for the healthcare supply chain?
Well, you're right. Certainly, the buzzword of today is automation. It's everywhere, and it can be overwhelming. I mean, if you go online and you look and you Google automation in warehousing or a CSC, you're going to see all kinds of stuff that mean absolutely nothing to you. You're going to see a lot of acronyms, ASRSs, AGVs, AMRs, and you're thinking, what does this really mean? The good news is it means there's technology out there that can help your CSC perform better. But if you look at the CSC model, typically they're not the quickest at addressing technology. They're not cutting edge, and nor should they be, right? That's not the model that they follow. But more and more, the CSC, the healthcare networks, they're being forced to start getting into some of that automation and those technology things. And the reason why, a lot of the times, it's not necessarily to reduce costs, but it's more of a worker shortage. You know, we see it all. We see it today. We see it a lot. If you can find workers, wages are going up. And you might have a worker start on a Monday, and by Friday, they got another dollar an hour down the street or a $3,000 signing bonus, and that person is no longer available. But when you're dealing with the criticality of the supply chain in a hospital, it's not like dealing with the supply chain of an Amazon or something like that, where, if Joe entering an order doesn't get his cell phone case for 3 days, well, maybe that's no big deal. But if your healthcare network, if your nurses station doesn't get their PPE equipment on time, well, that does have a big effect. So you're absolutely starting to see automation get into the healthcare networks, into the CSC for kind of a different reason that they're getting into the distribution space. You're also seeing the hospitals themselves, not necessarily just the CSCs, starting to adopt that technology. And why are they starting to adopt the technology? It's all about freeing up staff, right? Freeing up that important staff to do jobs that they should be doing, not these meaningless tasks that are just redundant, such as, grabbing stuff from a dock and bringing it up to a nurse's station, or moving the product from point A to point B. So let's free up that clinicians, that critical staff, through the use of automation.
With talk of evolving technologies and digital applications, how should you start your automation journey?
I look at it this way. I mean, if the pandemic has taught us anything, it's expect the unexpected. So you look at some companies out there, they've literally had to shut down their distribution operations for various reasons. Other companies had to scale back, again, for different reasons. They may not be able to get staff, they may not be able to get parts, etc. While other entities saw just a massive spike volume in what they had to get out the door. So as much as we try, we can't plan for every instance that is going to come our way. Whether it's a result of the pandemic, convergence in the supply chain, or other factors we can't even see, The operations today need to be very agile. We need to be very nimble. We need to get rid of redundant processes and be as efficient as possible. This is going to help us take those issues that come with us, those problems, those unforeseen circumstances, and be able to deal with them in a more timely basis. And automation for sure. This can help with those changing dynamics. Like I said, we want to eliminate redundant tasks. We want to respond quickly to changing things in our supply chain. We really want our supply chain of the business to become an opportunity center and not necessarily a problem or a cost center that is going to affect the way the business runs.
One of the main objectives of launching automation is to reduce costs and minimize manual tasks. How does automation fit into a business's warehouse operations?
I think the best way to answer that is if we take an example. And let's take the example of picking. Now, picking product for orders, that accounts for upwards of 60% of a warehouse's labor. And if we can take that and reduce that in any way, shape, or form, obviously there's going to be cost savings, there's going to be productivity improvements, etc. So let's look at that picker's day. He probably starts his day on the receiving dock or the shipping dock. He gets his work to do. He goes for a walk out to the location where he's going to pick stuff. He might fill his cart or his pallet up, and then he goes for a walk back to the dock. So those walks to and from the dock, those are non-value added services. Those don't bring any value into the equation. So if we can get rid of those and let automation help with those things, we're going to increase that picker's productivity and his value to the company. There's other examples such as, if we're in a manufacturing environment and product is coming off the line, typically what we have to do is we have to have a person designated to grab that stuff off the line, bring it to a receiving dock to receive into the warehouse and store it or cross dock or whatever the case may be. But with the technology we have out there, with AGVs and AMRs and these different types of robotic transportation systems, we can literally have an unmanned AGV come grab that pallet and bring it to the spot that it's supposed to be. So we're reducing that dependency on the human being for that redundant task and giving it to automation. Another example, you probably heard this with the pandemic, cleaning bots. With COVID, there's so many different protocols out there. Do we really want the human being to have to go and clean that warehouse? There are automated cleaning bots now that can help us with this process. However, one of the driving factors that we've seen recently in the pandemic, it's not necessarily trying to increase the efficiency of that labor. It may be to take that labor and use the automation to do the job because you can't get labor. It's become more expensive, absolutely. But that makes the assumption that you can find people. And you've probably seen some ads out there. Amazon was hiring. I think there was about a $3,000 bonus, different vacation levels. So there's a real competition for warehousing talent out there. And if we can take automation and fill some of those gaps with automation and not necessarily rely on people, that's what some of the companies are looking for out of automation today.
What should supply chains look for when it comes to automation, and how do you decide what type of automation is right for a CSC?
Again, I've said this before, one size does not fit all. That's the key to this, right? Because there's so many different types of automation, you have to make the decision on what is right for you. So is your operation pallet in, pallet out? Is it cases in, cases out? Are you an e-com fulfillment center? What are your volumes? All these things go into the decision on what makes sense for your operation. Again, define your problem, what you're trying to solve. Is that problem something like I cannot staff the warehouse? I can't get people to staff the warehouse. Is the warehouse associates that I get, are they too expensive? Do I need to reduce costs? Am I trying to reduce redundant, meaningless tasks from that supply chain operation? So again, one size does not fit all. Define your problem and then look at your warehouse, the layout of your warehouse that you have today. Are you staying in that warehouse or are you going to build a new warehouse and have automation as part of that build? If you're going to stay in the warehouse, you're probably not looking at putting in an ASRS with a huge footprint and a lot of work around, reconfiguring that warehouse. You might look at AMRs and cobots that help the associate do the job better without disrupting that entire warehouse layout. So there's a lot of factors that go into what you're going to pick and what type of automation is right for your warehouse.
When we talk about a CSC, Rick, what are you seeing that's kind of trending right now in the healthcare CSC world as far as automation is concerned?
Well, like we mentioned before, there is definitely a trend towards that automation. And what that automation means, it can mean different things for different CSCs. Um, there's been CSCs out there for a number of years that have adopted things like conveyors to help them move product from one area to another. And that's a great use of automation, a great use of those resources in a CSC. But a conveyor is a very expensive piece of hardware. Those can be upwards of three, four, $5 million for those conveyors and those pick towers. New things in the automation world have come out that give you just as much value, but you don't have to go through that exercise of the big capital budget and changing your warehouse layout and all those things that sometimes can be associated with automation. So let's talk about, what we're going to call a cobot. So a cobot is similar to a conveyor where it's going to bring work to you and it's going to take the results of your work to the dock. And really what it does, it just comes to you. It's an AMR, autonomous mobile robot. It navigates its way through the warehouse, kind of like a driverless car. And it comes to you and says, you need to pick this much product and put it in the tote. The operator says, I got it. And then that AMR takes the product away to the dock. So same idea as a conveyor, lot less invasive, lot less money. So we're starting to see that automation ramp up, but in different ways. And if you look at the future, I mean, I love the whole automation space. I love looking at it and seeing where it's going. Some of the things that they have out there now, they're just unbelievable. We have these picking humanoid bots, and they literally look like a human being, and they can literally reach into a bin and grab a product and put it in another bin. And they can walk and they can do all that things. I'm not saying you're going to get that in the next couple of weeks or the next couple of months, but the sky's the limit from where we're at today and the possibilities down the future.
So, Rick, once you've invested in the right automation, how does it improve operations and reduce costs?
Oh, there's a long list. I mean, automation itself, the ROI on automation in the long run is extremely high. Yes, the cost of these things can be high, but in the last couple of years, that's really come down. So some of the improvements you're going to see, lower overall operating costs. That's for sure, right? We talked about the travel time thing. So if I can take 50% of a picker's job away and I don't have to do the travel time thing now, that in theory is going to double his productivity. So you're going to reduce your overall labor costs. Better overall fulfillment. In today's world, the distribution center is not that static entity that it was 5 years ago. You've got a lot of fluctuations. You may have 20,000 orders one morning and 50,000 orders the next morning. So the automation is going to aid in you fulfilling those orders, increasing your fulfillment time, customer satisfaction, the whole thing. You can also look at automation from a warehouse space utilization. Something like an ASRS or a VLM, vertical lift module, they take a very small footprint in your warehouse, but they store a lot of products. So you may look at this from a perspective of the warehouse is overfilled and we need to get more space rather than going out. We can start going up and using some of this automation equipment to increase warehouse space. The automation also reduces errors. Every touch point that a human being is involved is a potential touch point for an error. That's not so when you get into robotics, automation, and the likes of those. Um, some side benefits. It's going to increase your overall employee satisfaction by reducing those tasks that nobody really wants to do. You're going to get a happier workforce. You're going to attract more talent to your workforce. You could potentially start to also eliminate, absenteeism and injuries because robotics will do that heavy lifting for you or get the product to you rather than some picker having to go up, to a level 5 type of thing and reach over and grab product or whatever the case may be. So the benefits of automation, they're numerous and I could probably give you a list a lot longer than that, but that's some of the highlights.
Rick, thank you so much for sharing your knowledge and expertise with us today. This has been a very informative Tecsys in Conversation interview. And thank you to our viewers. If you need support with introducing automation into your healthcare organization, Tecsys is here to help. At the end of this video, you have the option to speak to one of our supply chain experts, or you can access our infographic on Warehouse Automation 101. Thank you so much for watching.